All right, everybody, welcome to the Leadership Mastermind podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Peak, and this is my co-host, Laura Brandeo. Hello, Laura.
Hello, Mitch. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful.
Wonderful. Well, I have a question this time. Okay, so the question is, how do you go from pro soccer player to VP of one of the largest mortgage companies in America? And more importantly, what did you learn along the way? And allow me to introduce our wonderful guest this week. It is Brian Covey. He was once an Olympic USA soccer player, and Brian quickly learned how to get cut and literally get cut. Fitness and mindset became masteries for Brian very early in his career, and he was affected in 2007 by the market crash, just years after his soccer team days came to an end. Right about the time that he was raising some toddlers with his wife, Nicole. Well, Brian has mastered the art of growth, mindset, and the art of winning, and the art of staying fit. And poor Brian's got an injury right now. Brian is an executive at loanDepot, a proud father, an influencer, a top-rated podcaster, and just simply a fabulous soccer dad. He throws his suit down and coaches his daughter's league with joy several times a week. It's Brian's mission and his new book, Conversations with Covey, to highlight some of the most incredible stories he's gotten to share on his podcast, The Brian Covey Show. And Brian, we are thrilled to have you here with us today, and I'll hand it over to Mitch.
All right, welcome aboard, Brian.
What an intro. I'm going to have Laura intro me every time, the energy, the excitement. Like, I'm ready.
I'm telling her she has another pro job she could do here in this world is introducing people.
Yes.
There you go.
All right. Well, let's get right into it, and I'll ask you, what are your three key pillars to leadership?
Man, I love that. So leadership for me has been a big journey. And I always start with, obviously, people, because without people, there is no leadership. And we're all designed uniquely, I believe, given unique gifts and skills. And so I think it starts with people as one of the pillars, because without people, who are you going to lead outside of yourself, which I do believe it starts with ourselves. So I'd say pillar one, you got to have great people. The other pillar I talk about a lot comes from my sports backgrounds, which is coachability. And I define that really as someone that can receive feedback, give feedback, contribute back to the team, but someone that's always looking to learn, to grow, to improve themselves. And they recognize that this growth and leadership and whatever their role is on the team is a constant evolution. Fall in love with the process, as Gary Vee and some others might say. So I look at that piece. And then the last pillar really is around growth mindset. I look at that. Some people may call it abundance mindset, but I look at a growth mindset for all of us. If you're mentally strong, typically physically and other areas in our lives, we can tie that together. And I believe those are the three pillars that I look at. Those are the type of people I like to be around, surround myself with. Those are the type of leaders I like to personally invest myself in to build. And there are areas in my life that I'm always constantly learning and growing as well.
Awesome. All right. So I'll take one of those. All right. To start off with. All right. Now I'm going to take the last one because you mentioned growth mindset, and this is certainly a passion for me. In Carol Dweck's book, Mindset, she mentions a lot about what it takes to have a growth mindset. And believe it or not, do you know that only 10% of people in the entire world have a true growth mindset? So, Brian, how do you stay in line with a growth mindset? And what do you do to keep always growing and getting better and learning and staying on that track?
What a great question, and great book, by the way. I really found I go back to where, for me, sports was such an integral part, where I had great coaches that instilled in me that we were always practicing to improve. And the same, I think, correlates perfectly from sports over to business, is there's not really a destination. When people talk about people or technology, or even in the mortgage industry, it's always something we can improve upon. And so for myself, I believe there's foundations in our life that we need to make sure that we have alignment in. And what I mean by that is, if your spiritual life is out of balance from your mental health, out of balance from your physical health, out of balance from your relationships, your financial health, all those correlate together. And so what I have really started to practice over several years, just trying to find that rhythm that works for me, is early in the morning, practicing gratitude, getting an early morning workout, which right now, obviously I'm injured, but I can still walk. I can still do things, and making sure I get moving so that that is there. And if you look at your life as a growth part of the process, not just your business, I think too many of us, what I've seen, what I'd probably put the other 90% is they think of just growing their business, growing their production, growing the amount of referrals they receive. That is a microscopic part of you as an individual. And once you adopt a growth mindset, you start to realize and see opportunities. You recognize opportunities in your life where you go, I can grow here, I can grow here. And the alignment then starts to compound. So as my spiritual walk gets stronger, my physical walk gets stronger, my mental side gets stronger, and I'm reading books and I'm digesting content, you're always going to improve other areas as a byproduct of that. So I'd say you got to treat yourself as a whole person.
I love that. So let's talk a little bit about coachability. And obviously, you come from a sports background. How much impact did that have on you as a person and you as, employer or a leader?
A ton. I don't even know if I could quantify it. There are days where I go back to that just because it's the default for me, right? Like spending hours on a soccer field, especially growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, where it's over 100 degrees in the summer, but yet you're out training, yet you're out putting in the work. And I think about that today in business where you think we've got to put in extra time to get better. We've got to continually put in extra effort to make sure that we improve. In leading my team, I always try to come from a coaching aspect, which the best coaches are not the ones that berate you, tell you all the things that you're doing wrong. They make you feel like you're not worthy or not good enough. The best coaches instill in you, you have potential and you have things that are going well, but you also have this other area that you could tap into. It would make you even better. And so I've tried to surround myself with people like that, because what's interesting, it goes back to who you surround yourself with. There starts to be quite a connection and quite of a bit of influence that occurs. And so I want to make sure I'm around people that will give me feedback, but they will also receive feedback. And that's what makes, I believe, a great team. And look, I played soccer. So 11 players on the field, you need all 11 to win championships. You might get by at some level, at some games, you might win with 5 or 6 players playing their best. But the reality is, to win at a high level, you need everyone contributing and playing their role.
Very, very true. Okay, so going back to those great people. So we've established that you want people that are coachable, right? That are open to receive and to give. What else do you look for in terms of the best team members that you look for to put on your team for success?
So I would try to wrap this up together, and the people that work well with other people. And that could be a given, right? I mean, sometimes we think, wow, they just work well with other people. That's not always the case. And top producers in our industry, we know this. Not all of them are able to scale out their team as far as they could, because you have to be able to get along with not only operations team members, but your referral partners and others that you work with. And so I look for people that will be a greater contributor by being part of a team. And so when we're looking for people to join our group, or I look at any great team, look, how do they treat people? And I think back to sports. How did you treat the trainers? How did you treat the people that really were not your coaches and had direct authority over you, but they were part of the collective group? And did you treat them with respect? And I think that's just something for me, is I've worked with enough people that did not have respect for other people on the team. And whether it's now or in the future, at some point that will implode and self-destruct. And you see those people that they might on paper have results, but they're destroying the team. They're the cancer of the group. Mm-hmm. People wonder why that team never grew and never really connected. And I saw that in my soccer days, is it wasn't always the teams I was on with the most talent that won. It was the teams that were cohesive, that believed in each other, supported each other. And that couldn't be even more true than in the mortgage industry, I believe today, that you've got to have a great team around you, and you've got to be the first one that's a great team player to help everybody else.
And I think we can all agree that there are probably some high producing loan officers that are the wide receivers, with the ego and the, maybe not the team attitude that they have to become even more successful. So when you're looking at possible applicants or people that you're bringing into your team, do you ever look at and ask them, their history with sports and athletics and things like that to see if they have that coachability that you talk about?
Yeah, I do, Mitch. So I'll ask them that to see if there's any background there. And look, it may not be sports for them, but it may be they're in a fraternity or a sorority, or they volunteered in some community group. Maybe they're at their church. I want to know, what teams were they a part of? And it could have been a small team. It could have been a larger team. And what you're looking for is patterns in their behavior, and also listen to the language they use, right? About other people. And I'm also fascinated as I listen to them talk about their previous leaders on their team and people that they worked with. Because if they've got a negative connotation, you start to see a pattern of multiple negative people around them. You know, it's once been said, right? Like if you're having problems with all these people around you, maybe it's time to look in the mirror and realize it's me,
Right.
and I'm the problem. So I do look for that. We talk about language, and I learned this from Dr. Kevin Elko. He's really world renowned. He coaches some of the best, like Nick Saban and some other NFL guys. But Nick really helped us with, if you start to look at this and you look at like Saban in Alabama and you listen to what Elko will share, language that people use, I'm very intentional about the language we use on our team, because we all know this, words can cut down people and you can't take them back. It's hard to replace that. So I just want to listen to that as we're looking at somebody potentially to join, is it's not only the actions they take, but it's also the language that they use that can really give you a picture. Are they a fit for your team or not?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is so vital. I mean, I can remember when I was building my company, I would interview every single team member. Now, I couldn't do that as we grew, but it was so important that when you are growing something, you have to make sure that the people you put on that team are cohesively working together, because it is the success or the demise of what you're trying to build. So how do you keep this going? Okay, so I think you've interviewed them, you've listened to their language, you definitely picked up on some major cues. I mean, I loved what you said about when they complain about it was always the last company or it was always the last leader. It's really interesting how it's, wow, 5 people in a row that had that same issue. It's amazing. Yeah. So that is so smart and so great to share, because maybe sometimes people are so tuned in to asking questions that they're not truly listening to what is coming back at them. So, okay, so now you've brought these people on the team. They're doing great. How do you make sure that you keep them going in the right direction? Because we know the mortgage industry are peaks and valleys, right? We all know that sometimes it's all coming in droves, and sometimes we have to get creative. So how do we keep them on track during those difficult times? And also, what do you do to differentiate your team and yourself from others? Because we do know at times we could become a commodity within the industry. So how do you keep them on track, and how do you differentiate your team?
Great question. So as the team has grown, I would tell you my role has changed. So going back to the beginning, when we were just starting the team, which many people, you know, wherever they are could probably relate to this, it was a lot of me just wearing whatever hat needed to be worn. We had one branch manager, one sales manager. You know, fast forward 3 years later, and we have 12 branch managers, 2 area managers, 11 sales managers.
Wow.
My role today is very, very different. But to take you through that evolution and just to give you insights, early on, it was ride-alongs, right? Like before COVID, and I would just be riding in the car with one of the branch managers or sales managers, spending time with them. And my job was really to get in their head in a way of how do they think, how do they problem solve, how do they deal with situations. And I always told our group, and I started this very early on, it was something I had learned from previous leaders that had done well and not done well, is I tell our group, I want you to bring every problem that you have, whether you're struggling with this or it's something there. And it's not my place to judge you or make you feel bad about something that happened. It's my place to understand how you think and how you behave, because the reality is I won't be there. And thank goodness we did some of this prior to, you know, all the physical distancing and COVID, because I think as our job as leaders is to understand how our team thinks and really to program in some things of this is how we deal with conflict, right? When we have an issue, for example, on our team, if you have to send more than 2 emails, pick up the phone. Stop. You know, just little things like that. The leader has to lead by example. And I'll give you one good example of, if I let a phone call go 2 days, 3 days, and don't return a phone call to our team, like one of my directs, one of my team members, or someone from operations, I've now given permission to the team to do that. And so we've always said, look, if we want fast return phone calls, we make fast return calls. If I want people to treat me with respect through email or we're communicating, I'm going to put that out. And I've always, you guys probably have seen this, I lead with positive intent, meaning I believe everybody comes in the situation wanting the best for the customer and the company and themselves. They don't want to be in a situation that's a problem. They need help getting out of the situation. It's not time to make them feel worse. And so those are the things that we started to instill. And I think you start to really set expectations. We call it setting the bar. And that bar for us has continually risen. And if you start to build leaders, as our team grew, my job transitioned to build leaders that thought this way, that also brought new and innovative ideas on how to improve the process, improve what we're doing, and let them then become leaders. And then I'm having conversations with them on a regular basis, checking in to make sure I know how things are going. And as a leader, I want them to tell me the good and the bad, what's happening, because that way we can work on that together. And the last part I would include is, if you come at it almost like a coach and a partner, your team is going to be more willing to share with you the truth. You don't want to be the leader that your team tells you all of the things that they just want you to hear, and they don't tell you any things that you should hear. Because as a leader, how do I make effective decisions and strategically plan forward if I don't know the whole truth and the entire truth? Then we're not able to work together. So I would say partnering with them versus being the boss that barks orders is culturally for us, that's what you have to do. And I think that's how you keep people focused on what's important, right? And there's a lot of communication in between, but
it's a great culture.
Yeah, I think that's very important, because I've, been in sales pretty much my whole life, and there's always, well, I would say majority of the leaders in the sales field, always came across that way, where you couldn't tell them the bad, you just tell them the good, and then you tell your teammates the bad, and that, that doesn't create a very good environment. When the guy above thinks, or the gal above thinks everything's going smoothly, and down below everybody's upset, and harmonizing the negativity together.
Well, think about this too, is, I've known people, we've all worked with them, right? And you share something with them and they're immediately on the defense, right? Like, well, no, our pricing's not this, or no, operations isn't that, or, oh no, that's not that. I just listen and ask. I think the great leaders, and what I've really been working on, is ask better questions. Ask questions. Find out what you need to know, and then make decisions together. Well, hey, Laura, what would you do? Like, obviously, this isn't working as well as we believe it could be working. What would you change? Ask the questions.
Absolutely.
The team will help you solve the problems, right?
Right. They're the ones in the trenches.
Yep.
They're the ones.
But a lot of times, if you don't ask those questions, they're making assumptions as to what you want to hear. Yeah. So like in Mitch's example, those people, they assume, well, if I really tell him the truth, he's just going to bark at us, and he's going to tell us we're doing everything wrong, and that's the best pricing you're going to get. You better suck it up and sell it, right? Yeah. But because that's what they think this person doesn't want to hear. So instead they say everything is great and everything is wonderful, where it's not. Yeah. So yeah, I love the questions. Good way to approach it.
Well, you talk about growth mindset, and I can see that obviously with you, with your podcast and then the book. So tell us how that became about. How did you go from podcast host to sharing those stories in a book?
Oh, great question. What a journey. I learned so much from that. And it was really, if I go back to 2018 and into 2019, I had seen some of my friends, right? Phil Treadwell's a good friend of mine, and some other people that I listened to, Gary Vee and Ed Milet and all these people that had podcasts. And I was like, wow, they have great messages. And I thought, well, I have some messages, but I was just nervous to share it. Who would want to listen? Who would care? What am I going to talk about? All these, to me, they were all limiting beliefs I put on myself, and this kind of like imposter syndrome. Right. So going into 2020, not knowing what 2020 would look like, I said, you know what I know is I've got some amazing connections with people in my life that I've had the chance to spend time with them. And I believe if others had a chance to spend time with them, they would be blessed, they would learn, they would be inspired, and all of that. So I thought, well, why don't I just create a podcast that's not about me? It's about me talking with other people that have great ideas, have accomplished great things. And I intentionally stayed directly out of mortgage and just tried to bring in surrounding just great guests, right? And I thought that would be cool. And in a way, it was a little bit selfish, right? Because I'm bringing on great guests that it's almost like I got a 45-minute coaching session with them. And I got to pick their brain and ask them questions and build relationships, which I love to do. I recognize that's something for me I enjoy doing. So that's how the podcast was birthed. Was really, I believe there was a void in the market of great conversations in the mortgage industry, but that went outside the mortgage industry and collaborated at a level that I just thought, I've got great connections. Let's bring that to the market. Let's inspire people, but give them actual tactics to win. And then really from there, that continued to go well. The book was birthed out of the podcast. We took our favorite 10 episodes, and then mine was the 11th in the book. And I picked people that I had the best feedback on, I had the best time with, really that the audience gave me the most engagement on. I said, well, what if we put this into a book? And imagine you were to go to some like Tony Robbins event and you had 10 of the best speakers and you got their TED talk for like 10 or 15 minutes. And that's what each chapter is bringing out their actual TED talk in a way, or their inner greatness and what they would share with you on life lessons. So you leave not only kind of hope filled, because many of them will talk about their struggles and how they've overcome adversity at a high level, but they also talk about their journey and how they're successful today. So it should leave you with inspiration, and you could pick it up and read one chapter, or you could read it all together. And I loved it. I mean, I've gone back to it so many times in those conversations that I felt like it was really something in the market that I could just give back.
Well, I really like that because Laura and I are similar. So, we're, cruising along here, like maybe episode 16, I believe, with this podcast. And it is similar in the fact that we're looking for helping the mortgage and real estate industry, but we are doing it with some people,
Outside.
in the industry, but we're also doing it with some people, sales related, mindset related, different things outside of the industry as well.
Yeah.
And that helped us come up with our new idea, which is actually the Leadership Mastermind virtual event that we're doing in May, which is very similar. We're bringing on a few of the, people that had the best responses and that we felt, we connected well with, and we're going to have them do, a virtual 45-minute session about themselves and, leadership. So it's kind of similar to the book idea, is where we came up with, is something very similar to that. So I really like that. It's very intriguing. So I'm definitely going to have to check out the book.
So Brian, what were some of the things that you learned from those guests and going through the experience of writing a book?
Well, one I will share right now I'm going through is obviously with the bicep tendon tear and the injury and all that. It's almost like it was mentally preparing me, spending time. One of the guests, Anthony Trucks, former NFL player, talks about mindset shifts and the ways we can shift our energy. And I'm so thankful that I got to connect up and got to meet Anthony. We came through Nashville. But one of the big takeaways with Anthony was really how we approach our day. And people talk about mindset a lot, but he actually dives into your identity. And they're two different things.
Okay.
Without getting too far and spoiling the spoiler alert, I would tell you that is something we each should go on the journey, because understanding your identity and who you were created to be and who you are and owning that gives you tremendous power. So I'd say that was one huge. Matt Newman, I mean, to this day, it was the tearjerker chapter. Matt overcame cancer, found out in his early 40s. He's a dad, big financial services guy. Without giving too much of his story away, I'll just say the way he found out about his cancer and how he has lived his life since then just empowers you. You realize that all of us will be touched by someone, whether it's us or a direct family or someone we know, unfortunately, with disease like that. And you go, how would I respond if I was in that situation? So Matt's story, off the chart inspirational. And then I can't leave out my good friend now, David Meltzer. So if you know, obviously, the movie Jerry Maguire was filmed after his firm. And what I took away is my role as a leader today and how I approach my role has tremendous creative fluidity to it. And how I approach that doesn't have to be a cookie cutter, vice president role. It doesn't have to be this or be that. And it's actually much like a sports agent, which was my dream job, by the way, coming up. And so they've kind of helped me realize you're actually a sports agent. You're attracting talent. Right. You're taking care of the talent. You're nurturing their talent to get them the best market value by working with the most customers. And you're building an organization and a team and a brand and influence. Yeah. Are you not the same? And I thought, mind blown. So I would just say, go through those. And then you guys probably know Brittany Hodak, who has spoken Housing Wire. And
Yep.
I mean, her piece, if you want to get into actual tactical, how do you build, super fans and things, it gets very tactical with like her
Got
set.
it.
Unbelievable.
Awesome. That's
And I
great.
do want to go on the record and say I'm a giant Jerry Maguire fan. One of the best movies.
Wasn't it? I mean, I tell people, and just getting to meet people like that, I would tell you, if anybody is doing podcasts or things like we're doing, is not being afraid to go for those bigger guests that you believe you may not be able to get. I've done so much of that, and now experiencing some real fun success of you start to build that, and people I've connected with. It's how you become better, which then I believe as the more we grow, the better we are for our team and our families. And so why wouldn't you go for the grand slam and the home runs, right? Go big.
I totally agree with you, Brian. And it's interesting because, and I think you and I even know a familiar person between Larry Levine. And even that, it's funny how, because we both have stepped outside of the mortgage industry, and we all need to do that. Every single person, regardless of what career you have to challenge yourself to get outside, because that's when we're a little outside that comfort zone. So we can't rely on having conversations about originating loans or working with realtors or right. That stuff just comes natural where we don't need to think about it. But all of a sudden you're having a conversation about mindset. You're having a conversation about emotion, or you're having conversations that you have not had before. Well, all of a sudden you have to listen, you have to stop, you have to analyze, you can't go on autopilot, and then you learn as you embrace this. And like you said, it makes us better parents, better leaders, better team members, better all of those things. So I highly encourage everyone to continue to do that because it really does improve us overall.
I've seen you do that. And I think that's where we are going. And you think about consumers, yes, we might be helping someone with financial advice and giving them information about how they can afford to buy a home and their overall debt load and all these things. We're giving great advice. But the reality is these are people. These are friends and consumers in our community. And so if we start to connect in other ways, I know people see this, but like one of my best referral sources is still my gym, right? Like
there
I think
you go.
That wherever you go, be more like your community and make your community better. I think that's where the mortgage industry now can start to have a tremendous impact back in the community. To your point, we got to step out of just our little lanes of mortgage.
Absolutely. Let's go back in your career. So give us a point. What was your favorite part of being a soccer player, or one of your best experiences?
Ooh, probably when I made the Olympic team and I was on the pool. I didn't make it to the final team that went to Japan, but I realized, and that was the U17 team. I think I was 15 at the time. And
wow.
if you can imagine, I was a freshman and I was getting to travel quite a bit and I was away from school. And I realized at that point, like I was different in the sense of I was away from school. I'm training. We're wearing the USA jerseys. We're playing games. We're training all the time, these nice facilities. That was a point in which for me kind of was like a fire lit of, I recognized one, I had the talent and the drive to continue to do more, but that's just such an honor. I mean, to make it to that level and get to compete at the highest levels, I don't think I truly understood the moment, but that allowed me to travel overseas to Wales and over to Europe and many countries and play. And I look back to that traveling to other countries at an early age is shaped who I am, because you have more of a world view than just growing up in your town. And so I'd say that was probably a highlight, because some of the guys are still my friends. I still keep in touch with. We have kids now. I'm coaching, they're coaching and doing all that. I think those are the things to look back on now is you really respect and appreciate the people that put that much time, energy, and effort in. It was beyond talent, because at some point there were a lot of talented kids, but there was that something extra. I think we just stayed in touch because we kind of recognize that that's our now responsibility in a way, is to give that gift to the future players that are coming up.
That's awesome. Yeah, we had another former Olympian on the podcast, Johnny Quinn. I don't know if you're familiar with his story, but great guy. And, the mentality of it all, I think, is similar with you, is where he came from and that background of sports. It really ties together with leadership when it comes to owning and running a business.
Oh, the lessons are so many. And it's interesting, as you get older, you start to realize that. And I've built multiple teams and we're building our team now. And the lessons become more and more clear as we start to get more clear of who we are in our journey, and going back and looking at our stories, whatever those were as we were growing up, and the good times and the bad times, and realizing they've shaped who we are and how we think and how we respond. But I would also say there is a lot of training that has gone in, and I've been intentional about how do we program our brain, and that subconscious is very powerful, of how we make decisions every day and recognizing patterns that, thank goodness for sports. And I know not for everybody are they like that. I understand I'm probably more driven and more competitive than most, but I like that. I like to be around people like that. And so that's how we've really geared and built our team. And we know what we're looking for, and we know what's going to make that team thrive.
Well, I think that, what is it? The Enterprise, I think it's their Enterprise Rentals has that same philosophy. They bring in a lot of college athletes.
Yeah.
Like a lot of their, leaders are college athletes from all sports.
Yeah.
And they really like that concept, for their company. So let's go back a little bit and tell us, what is the highlight of your career as, the mortgage industry goes with your company?
I was actually asked this the other day. It's right now. I've looked back, and I loved producing because I got in the business because my friends were buying homes. It was their first time. I had bought my first home with my wife, and the process was kind of one of those where I thought, okay, I think I can do something here. There's something to it. I could make this better and some things. But right now I'm having the most fun I've ever had, because the team we're building and the leaders that I've surrounded myself with, they're coaching me and training me and making me better as much as I hope I'm making them all better. And I've got people on my team today, and our team, that their life and their legacy is forever changed, right? They're leading teams. Like, we've got 2 people on our team. It's the first time they'll ever have billion-dollar teams themselves, ever. And I look at that and go, if I can be some small part of that or encourage that, I'm having a blast. Our team with Anthony Shea, obviously our CEO, huge mentor and coach for me. And then all the way through, our organization has some amazing leaders that I'm learning from, and I've connected outside of our company in the industry. And I really see part of my path going forward is, how can I help the industry, and regardless if they work at LD or not, how can we make the industry better, more contemporary, more modern, where it should be going? And so I would tell you, I'm having the most fun I've had right now.
That's awesome. That's great. So Brian, question about that. You speak about coaching, right? The soccer, your children, right? All of that, and helping athletes get to that level. Let's correlate that to the mortgage industry. How do you bring in new people into our industry? And how do we, I always have a running joke that I think we're the best kept secret, because I think our industry is magnificent. It's life-changing. It provides such great opportunity, regardless of what direction you want to go within our industry. But yet we still are not seeing enough young people coming into our industry. Yep. So what are your thoughts on that? And how do we do that? And how do we encourage them to come in?
So some of that, I would say, is almost like the news. We only know what we know. And when I shared this with someone the other day, I'll give you some just quick stats of why I believe it's not that way everywhere. The average branch manager on my team is close to 40 years old. The average LO is closer to 30.
That's good.
Yep. Very different than what you would hear in industry statistics. Yeah. And we have brought on, when I look at our top producers, we probably have 20 to 25% of our entire team have less than 5 years experience.
That's great.
Very, very different. Now, I think what we need to do, though, is we need to address, it is an issue in the industry, and not everyone's willing to do that. What we found is we've partnered up with not only individuals, but coaching companies. And I've realized if you try to tackle it internally, which a lot of companies have tried this, internally, we're going to do this. Well, I know at loanDepot, we have a phenomenal, it's called an ACES program. It's our direct lending, consumer direct services. You can come in with no experience. They teach you on the phones. And a lot of those guys and gals years later will move over to retail, traditional retail, what we're used to. So that's one avenue. We've hired people in loan processing assistant roles that we're able to teach them the business from the ground up. Again, no experience. And I think that's one area to learn. How do I order title? How do I order an appraisal? What's an HOI? How do I look and see where the condo docs are online? Like, we're teaching them some things along the way. Then you got to work on credit, income, and assets, and actually teach them the fundamentals of the business, right? So we have started to do that. We have a couple of leaders on our team we've empowered that we've said, we want you to kind of build this out under our umbrella. We're going to give you some guardrails. And the good news for us is we do have an approach where we have a lot of customer leads, because I think that's what you need is at bats for these customers. And you need a great mentor, right? You need somebody that's going to take that customer with you and say, okay, let's look at this. Where do I start? Where do I go? And we know the tools today are far better than they've ever been. And so one thing I'm doing right now, I would encourage people, kind of a selfish plug for Barry, but I'm actually going through the Certified Mortgage Advisor program myself. Paid for it, doing it myself. And I'm going through it thinking to myself, I think there's some people on my team that right, they need to go through some of this because there's not something that exists out there. So you could pull that in. I know some other companies have programs. But I would say as an industry, we need to get very intentional about this and recognize if you look at your stats and they don't look like that, and you don't have the younger demographics and less than 5 years experience, start thinking about that, because they're actually some of our most successful at adopting technology. They have new ways of acquiring customers that are not traditional ways of just calling real estate agents, financial planners, and such. And I think we all learn from each other. So look, I know of 5 managers on our team, 5 leaders that have, I wouldn't call it a rookie program, but is very much geared towards, they're okay bringing someone in, and I'm okay with them bringing them in because I've seen they have actually a disciplined format to it.
Well, I like that. So tell me this, tell our audience why they should hire new faces, that aren't in the industry. What's the advantage to them to do that, and why should they?
So I look this way, is we only know when we speak mortgage talk and we spend time with people that have experience in mortgage, we typically are just regurgitating some of the same information. So if you want new ideas and you want fresh ideas and you want innovation to happen, hiring people outside the industry, and I actually did this for my assistant that came on board, and I hired her intentionally with no mortgage experience because that's not what I need to learn or add to the team. And the people that have joined, what's interesting is they can come with a fresh set of eyes and they may bring experience. You mentioned earlier about enterprise. We've hired a couple people from enterprise, which is phenomenal. Their work ethic, their sales ability. We've hired people from timeshare sales. We've hired people from real estate, financial planning. And without fail, they will come in with new ideas. And if we can structure it properly and give them the right support and the right training early on, we can teach them the mortgage business. And that's what I've learned is, Mitch, as we bring those folks on, they have ideas we would have never come up with in our box that we're grinding. We're just doing things the way we know how to do it. Sometimes you got to slow down. And when do we get ideas into our business on how to improve it? We only talk to other mortgage companies and friends at other mortgage companies typically.
Right.
That's not really masterminding. And that's why, back to the podcast, that's why I brought people on that were not in the industry, because they shared things that I thought I can go apply that in with our team.
Yeah, I had a quick story. I had a boss, and his way of finding talent in the sales industry was going to lunch. He would go to lunch, go to like your local pubs, and when the waitress came out, he would get their story. Hey, single mom, 2 kids at home, great work ethic. Why are you here? Ask them questions, and he would hire them. Yeah. He would be like, "Why don't you come and work for me? You get more growth potential. You get a career. Let's bring you in and see if it works." And I'm thinking, well, that's kind of, a crazy idea, but it worked, and it worked great. Bringing in fresh, talented people from outside of the industry, that have a good customer service background, or like you said, a good sales background, that makes a big difference.
They're huge. And I would just encourage everybody, don't wing it, actually have a program, because as we bring new people into the industry, we all need to take care of them together and make sure that they are trained successfully. And there's plenty of places out there. And I would just say, look, you're investing in a person. You're not investing in some P&L. You're not investing in some hopes one day they're going to be a mega producer. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But if you believe in the right person, we've used everything from disc profiles to Enneagram and all those different things. If you find the right person, invest in them. Don't be cheap. Invest in them.
Yeah, you are right. And I think that's how we got to where we are. is that we pretty much, oh, I don't have time to train those people to get to that level, or we're so busy, our pipelines are full, we have too much business. And then we woke up one day and we said, wait a minute, the average age in our industry here is 50. It's like there's a problem here. So yes, that is how we got there. I think we all learned many lessons in 2020. I think we all realized, how valuable our people are and the need for bringing in new talent. So I love that. That is an absolute great way to approach it. Brian, importance of social media and branding. Please touch on that. We know the value.
Oh, preach, man. So this has been a journey for me as well. And I was talking about this the other day with someone. They were like, hey, tell me about your LinkedIn growth and different things. And I said, guys, look, I could go back to the crash in like 07, 08. And I remember I didn't really have but maybe a couple thousand followers on LinkedIn, right? And now I think it's like 40,000. There was no Instagram really. I wasn't on there. I wasn't active on Facebook. I think I still had a joint account. Here's what I would share is in the world of sales, no matter what sales you're in, think about this. In room A is the people that still believe all of your sales have to be in person. They believe you've got to make 100 phone calls to get there, and they're going to grind and grind and grind. And it's always dependent upon the efforts they make in that one moment, because there's really nothing that lives after a phone call other than I called them, I showed up and did something. In room B, you have someone that says, you know what, this contemporary model of social media, of creating content and putting things out there that lasts, that hundreds of thousands of people in my community and my network that might need my services can access at any point that they go on their phone and actually search for services, they could find me. And the group in B are going to reach hundreds of thousands of people. And the group in A, they're going to reach a couple hundred people. Which one would you want to be? And it's really that simple, why you should do it, because the amount of growth and the results are undeniable. The amount of referrals that come in, undeniable. And the fact that some people are not on social today scares me, because as the industry continues to evolve, it is going to be the early adopters and some of us that got in on it. And I look at how we've built our team and we're teaching our team how to do it. If you're not on social, someone else will be. And the reality that we all have to face is customers are very comfortable going online, picking up their cell phone and going on their smartphone and finding a mortgage provider. That's reality. Look at where Quicken is. And if anyone would want to dispute that, I would just say, how is it that the #1 lender in the country has 0 boots on the ground in your local market, but yet for many of us, they're the #1 purchase lender in many markets across the country? So that shift has occurred. And I would encourage people, wherever you are, to just get in the game. And there's obviously resources and things that are there. We were all uncomfortable when we got into it. I know I was scared to death. I had no idea what to do, didn't know where to start. You can't ignore this. And imagine this picture, and I've shared this before. There's a table, and there's 12 people at the table, and you want to try to earn a seat at that table. The customer's going to get referrals. They're going to get looking online and finding someone. If you can't earn a seat at that table and the customer never found you online, you actually could be the best mortgage provider with the lowest interest rates. You could put together the best programs, best communication, best CRM. Like you're wicked good at all that stuff. You still didn't have a seat at the table. The customer talked to other lenders, never spoke to you. You're not going to win that game. You're not going to win that game. And so we all need to take this serious. This is now, in my belief, closing loans on time. We all have commoditized pricing and products and such. The reality is, though, what makes you different is you. You have to convey that, because I know for myself, I have purchased and got services and looked people up online before I made my decision about working with them or not. If you're not there, somebody else is.
Yeah, and I think I do that in every aspect of my life, business, or, if I'm looking for anybody, I look online first. So like you said, if you're not there, you're definitely missing the boat.
Well, and here's what I'd add to it. So it's even gone a step further than that. And we have to show up online and be one of the choices. But I would also tell you, if you get referred from your real estate agent today, you're a great loan officer and your agent says, you got to use Mitch, you got to use Laura. The first thing they're going to do is what? Google you.
They're going to look you up. Yep.
They're going to look you up. If your social presence doesn't have, and you talk about you have great technology, but I don't see you have great technology, and I see someone else has an easier application or a little bit sexier website or something, I just go, man, it's just going to be easier to work with them. I'm going to go with them. We have to be aware that's how consumers think, and that's how they will behave. And so no longer can we sit on the sideline. It's not only business generation, it's also business validation, right? That's how they're going to validate you and choose you. So we need to get in this.
Yeah, I mean, listen, years ago, it started with our restaurants, right? We used to go on and we used to say, how many reviews, did people like the pizza at this place? But now it's everything, just what Mitch just said, right? If we're buying something on Amazon, we're looking at the reviews and we want to see what this product versus another product. So you're correct, Brian. If our digital presence doesn't match what we're claiming, there's a disconnect, and that actually causes mistrust. All of a sudden, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Brian told me that he was going to do all this, but his website and his social doesn't match. Disconnect, moving on. And that is how important. And, a lot of times, I've asked people, what do you think the borrower of 2030 is going to look like, right? Because honestly, whatever that answer is, well, you better have that in motion right now. Yeah. You're not going to wait till 29 to start thinking about, well, here we are, 2030. Right now, that is the time to think about whatever that answer is. That's who you need to start being right now.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great one. And there's a lot of tactics behind it, right? Like we share a lot of tactics and you can learn those, but I would just say you have to participate in this. Because those that are sitting on the sideline and just kind of warming up or not sure about getting in the game, I think you're going to see a surge of teams formed, and the people that figure out social, like we've talked about, they're going to see an uptick in their business, and then others are going to be wondering where their referrals coming from. And you don't want to be that person that gets left behind, because you're at that point, you're not needed as much, and you're not going to be adding the value you probably got in the business to actually deliver.
Yeah. Let's go back a little bit here to 2020. So tell me, what is, as a leader, what have been your biggest takeaways, from everything that happened in 2020?
Hiring the right people matters. It just does. And I looked at that as, I'm uniquely positioned in that we were able to hire our own operations staff. We had gone to remote much sooner than anything hit in 2020. And so that was something we were ahead. But then even though we had started it earlier than a lot of other companies, actually executing that strategy and realizing how we connect, right? So we do a lot of Microsoft Team calls. We do a lot of Zoom calls. We try to have a lot of fun. Right now, great idea. Anybody can steal this. We've hired a lot of underwriters on our team. And so we do a Meet the Underwriter every week. And it has a series of questions and pictures about them and their pets and their family and where they live, what they like to do. And we're trying to make sure that we have connectivity, because what I believe is happening is we're not going to go back to these big hubs where people are going to be in the office all the time, and we're going to have that. If you're looking for that, that's not going to happen. I don't believe in large concert there. So I think what we took away in 2020 was you have to be able to scale your team, and you have to be able to lead your team effectively, remotely. And that for many people got kind of strange, right? Like we started doing a lot of voice memos. I do a ton of video messages to our team. I don't do long emails. We don't do all that. And so I think as a leader, you have to lead by example. And we shifted those. And remember that you have to recognize your team differently. In the past, you would show up to a sales meeting. I would give you your awards. We'd high five. We'd do all that. Remember to recognize your team, whether it's DoorDash coupons, whether you're sending them their favorite bottle of wine or their favorite t-shirt or jersey from their favorite sports team, a night out to their favorite restaurant, whatever it is. Remember to continually recognize your team. And then for us, I realized the leadership matters. And so as we start to build our team, if you're a leader that leads other leaders, this was critical. Is I hired 5 new leaders that I have never met in person, which if you'd asked me 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I would have laughed at you. I would have said, you are absolutely crazy. Never going to happen. Never, ever, ever going to happen. Well, never say never. They have actually turned out to be some of the best contributors and leaders that now I feel like I have this personal bond with. I can't wait to meet them. I have something to look forward to. And so I would say, I think you said it earlier, Laura, is getting out of our comfort zone. I would have in years past never done that. 2020 opened my eyes that there is great talent out there. There are great people out there. And the way that I used to do things of traveling away from my family and being away and spending a lot of money, quite honestly, traveling, maybe it's not maybe it's not that way, right? Our team would tell you when the boss comes in or the leader comes in, as they would say, whatever, maybe I'm taking away more time and they want to spend more time with their family or more time producing. And my time doesn't need to be as frequent, and it needs to be very intentional in how we do that. So I'm still digesting some of it, but I will say one of my biggest lessons is stay connected no matter how far you might feel removed, and pick up the phone often and connect with your team because they need it.
Yeah, because if you're not connecting with your team, somebody might be.
That is correct.
Yep. And connect beyond mortgage. What we learned last year, I brought in a lot of guests and people speaking about mental health, physical health, talking about how do you build your social media presence. We brought in people to make your life easier. We even brought in somebody to teach you how to cook. I mean, just all kind of like, we've got to realize life is no longer within four walls and we want to compartmentalize it. Life for our originators and our teams, it just overlaps. It just is like, you might hear kids in the background, dogs in the background. I'm taking a phone call at my kid's soccer game. That is just the way things are done today, and be okay with that and connecting. I think that's made us all more relatable as we go on.
Yeah, and I don't think that'll ever go back, to your point. I think we've all learned. I mean, look at the volume and production that we were all able to do during all of that, right? So now we've learned, I think you're right. I don't think all of us have processed everything that we learned in 2020. I think we're still going through that. But I agree with you. I think our industry will be better for it. Yeah. Because we were challenged to come up with those digital solutions and working remotely and learning that we don't have to hop on airplanes and necessarily. But I will tell you, those conferences and times of coming together, it is important. And I know we all are looking forward to it. Maybe it's just not as often as we used to do it.
I think that's it, is being strategic about when you do those and the time you spend. And for a lot of us, you have to really step back. And I think like Bezos and some people share this, you know, you have to simplify it. And if you could do it over a 10 or 15 minute Zoom call, you should do it that way. If it needs to be in person, you need to be intentional about why are we connecting in person and bringing people together? Because there are very different ways to engage and do team building. If you're going to have everybody just sit in the audience and listen and take notes, you've missed the mark. It needs to be so connected and team building and activities that you actually are required for you and I to sit together and work together to actually accomplish it. I think that's going to be a shift that we're going to have to figure that out. Conferences will look much different, and the people that figure that out sooner rather than later will be sold out and we'll have rave reviews.
I love that. Everyone should be challenged and collaborating. Like you said, just being part of an audience is not enough anymore. It has to be more.
Fire walks and sword swallowing and board breaking.
Like that.
You know, that's the kind of stuff you're going to need.
Get crazy with it, right? Like, I do know some, though, they're doing like their morning workout together or morning meditation together, and they've got groups, right? You may have 4 different options in the morning of go have breakfast and coffee over here, go do a morning workout there, go do a meditation. But if you're going to bring your team together, I would just implore you, like, think about how you're going to allow those people to connect and leave with an experience rather than just information.
And that's the word, experience.
Yep.
And going back to my 2030 borrower, they're looking for that experience too.
They are right now. And
I know.
Wow.
That we have to use that word experience.
If we don't, we're missing it. And we all look for that. And whether it's, you know, yard services to how you get your mail and Amazon, you mentioned earlier, to, you know, where our kids go to school, like there is an experience. What experience are we creating? And we want it to be memorable and people to talk about it and go, man, I just got my mortgage through Brian. It was awesome. Here's what I loved.
You should too.
Right. Like, that's what we should be striving.
Well, my UPS driver delivers an experience, because every time he comes to our farm, he spends 10 minutes outside with like a whole lap full of cats. He has to stop every time and pet our cats for like 10 minutes, and it's sending videos to his daughter, and, you know, and my kids just get a kick out of that. They're like, he's out there petting the cats.
Yeah.
That is awesome. That's actually awesome.
Right. And that guy is making an experience. He's creating something, you know, outside of the here's your package on your step and walking away.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome.
All right, Brian, tell us, how does everyone follow you, learn more, get the book, podcasts, every which direction? Tell us.
do it all, as I am sharing quite a bit on my journey that I open up, and you'll be able to see all the real truths of what's happening and how this is all evolving. So Instagram is obviously a great place to follow. It's just at the Brian Covey, because somebody already had Brian Covey. So I had to do the Brian Covey thing. LinkedIn, I'm on there, Facebook there. And I would tell you, if the book is on Amazon, we just released the hardback, and we've got Kindle, we've got the softback. I'm definitely go check that out. We got some big things planned on how we're going to be able to give back with that.
Awesome.
I didn't do the book to make money, obviously.
I wrote a book too. We're not in it for the money.
No.
That's not the reason why you do it.
Got a greater good and purpose. And,
Yes.
and I would just encourage people, if you find value in that, or my podcast on Apple, if you just leave a review and leave something there and give us a rating, that would be awesome on the book and then the podcast. We're creating a community right now around the book, and we're going to have the guests come on and share. So you want to be part of this community, so just connect up with me. I can give you more info, and I'd love to be able to help support your journey. And I'm definitely one of those guys. I'm engaged on social. I just don't post and leave. So if you engage with me, I'll know, and I can engage back and support your journey.
Awesome. Well, we definitely appreciate you joining us here today. I know you had some great insights that the audience will definitely be able to learn from and implement in their business.
I appreciate you guys having me. You're doing a great job, and congrats. I think you're starting to really see the impacts this can have, and I just appreciate you guys having me on. And if there's anything I can do.
This was wonderful, Brian. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.